Hey everyone, Arloon here coming to you with another guide, this time for Beidou. Beidou is a very strong Electro character that has a very similar ultimate to Xingqiu, making them one of the best pairs that you can have actually right now for Electro. She is also very unique in that she is the only character in the game with the full counter playstyle, which is very fun to use, especially if you do it perfectly. It is just a great feeling to have to do that perfect full counter, especially when you see the big damage it can do. However, do note that this is a support Beidou, so the full counter will not be doing insane amount of damage for this Beidou, but instead her ultimate will be doing a lot of damage for us. Plus, it's going to be near infinite as well because of how we're going to build her. That said though, before we talk about Beidou as a character, we have to talk about Beidou's team, as you will want to make sure that you get the Electro Resonance on the team because you want Beidou to have her ultimate up as much as possible. You will also want to make sure that you have a Hydro character in the team, whether that Hydro character will be your main DPS or another support like Xingqiu. You can have, for example, Child as your main DPS or even Mona as your main DPS, and then you will be doing Electro-Charged by combining Beidou's ult with their attacks. Or if you have Xingqiu as your support, then you can have another Electro character like I do, which is Keqing as my main DPS. My Keqing here is an Electro Keqing, which means I will just be doing a lot of Electro Charge attacks as well, in addition to Beidou's ultimate and Keqing's attacks as well. Then you have a fourth slot which is free for any character that you want. Now, getting into Beidou, the first thing we have to look at is her talents. I accidentally leveled up her normal attack, but it's fine. You do not need to level up her normal attack if you're going to be using her only as support. But the two important things about her is her E and her Q, with Q being the more important one, because her Q is basically like Xingqiu's ultimate as well. The only problem is the downside is it is also AD energy cost, which will be fixed by the Electro Resonance that we spoke about earlier, because Electro Resonance will give you one electro particle each time you do a reaction, and we are going to be doing a ton of Electro Charge reactions with this team, which means every 5 seconds you are going to get that extra particle. Plus, like I mentioned earlier, you will want another Electro character, so if you have, for example, Fischl as your other support character, she will be generating a lot of Electro particles in order for Beidou to get her ultimate back as much as possible. And if you have, for example, a main DPS like Keqing, like I use, then you will also get the Electro particles as much as possible, so it won't be a problem as long as you have enough energy recharge, which we will discuss later. Now, the one other thing with Beidou's ultimate is that it gives this 25% damage reduction. Now, the thing with Xingqiu is it also gives a damage reduction based on the E, which is 25% as well. Now, I haven't figured out how these damage reductions stack, but if it's additive, then that means it's a 50% damage reduction, which is very, very nice. It also means that you will be surviving a lot of hits even if you don't have a shield. You can take this as sort of a preventive measure, which means you won't be taking a lot of damage while both their ultimates are up. That's 15 seconds of you almost taking so little damage, especially if you have your Xingqiu built with the Hydro percent. That means you can have up to almost 75% damage reduction, which means nothing in the game is probably gonna one-shot you as long as you have both their ultimates up, which you will always have. There's probably only a 5-second downtime that you will have their ultimates down, and that is because their cooldown of their ultimate is 20 seconds and the duration is 15 seconds. Now, Retribution, her first Ascension talent, is basically the perfect counter, which builds in together with her E. This means if you can time your E perfectly to an attack, then you will immediately get the highest damage bonus from Tidecaller. How Tidecaller works is you will be holding your block, and that means after you take 3 hits while holding your block, you will be doing the max amount of damage. But with Retribution, if you can just time it perfectly, you will get that damage bonus immediately. Lightning Storm we won't be using too much because this is made for main DPS Beidou, which our Beidou is not main DPS. But basically, it will be so that if you use your E, you will want to use charge attacks instead of your normal attacks, since it'll greatly reduce it and it'll increase your damage and attack speed as well. As for Constellations, she is still really good even with Constellation 0, no Constellations at all. But for support Beidou, your best Constellation is Constellation 2, and her other power spikes would be 5 and 6, which means if you have a Constellation 2 Beidou, that is more than enough. If you have a Constellation 0, it is also just fine, because there is not really going to be a lot of situations where there are a lot of enemies, and even then, 2 additional targets is not really that big when you think about it in the end, since Electro-Charged itself as a reaction already jumps between characters anyway. It's just an additional damage based on the number of characters in the field, so it's kind of useless against, for example, bosses or something like that. It's still just a bonus thing if there is multiple enemies. For her artifacts, I am using a 4-piece Noblesse Oblige. You can also use a 2-piece Thundering Fury, 2-piece Noblesse if you want. That is going to increase your Beidou's damage by quite a bit, but I'm going for a 4-piece Noblesse because Xingqiu is using a 2-piece of the Hydro set, and I'm still farming another Noblesse, 2-piece Noblesse for Xingqiu, but he needs this Hydro damage bonus for his E because this scales off Hydro damage, which means you will have a free slot in your team for a Noblesse set, and I gave that to Beidou instead, since we will always be using her ultimate anyway. But if you already have a character in your team that uses a Noblesse set, then you can go for 2-piece Thundering Fury, 2-piece Noblesse instead. That'll increase Beidou's damage even more, as long as you already have that Noblesse set in your team. Now, her Hourglass, you want to use an energy recharge one, because we are aiming for at least 200% energy recharge. That way her ultimate will always be up 100% of the time, or rather, it'll only be down when it's on cooldown for 5 seconds, and you will always have your ultimate when you need it. For her substats, you want to make sure that each of her substats have energy recharge, and then the usual attack substats, which is attack, crit damage, crit rate. Whichever ones you get, you have to be pretty lucky anyway for god tier substats, but energy recharge, very very important on her. For her hat, it's the usual crit damage or crit rate, whichever one you need more. But if you're going to follow my weapon, right now I'm using Skyward Pride, but what I usually use with her is Serpent Spine, because Serpent Spine is really good on Beidou, because since she will be doing off-field damage while on her ultimate, that means you're always going to be getting this 30% damage bonus as long as you have 5 stacks when you cast her ultimate. So when you cast her ultimate, you switch characters and you will keep this 30% damage bonus, not to mention the crit rate bonus, which is very very nice. However, other weapons that you could use is Sacrificial Greatsword or Favonius Greatsword. Both are very very fine, but I would recommend Serpent Spine being probably the best 4-star weapon for her. Other weapons is Prototype Archaic, is still also fine because of that attack, and all you have to do is do a normal attack every 15 seconds to get its passive. Rainslasher is a bit of a conundrum though, because I don't really recommend it, since if you haven't noticed, most of my characters are only level 60, because level 60 is basically the level where your characters would achieve already its most decent potential, and then after that you're just putting on a little extra DPS on top of everything, plus the talents as well, which means at level 60 Ascension 4 you pretty much have what it takes to clear all the content in the game except the hardest ones, which is 9-starring Abyss. You can clear Abyss with 6 stars, Abyss 12, Abyss 11 with 6 stars, as long as your characters are Ascension 4 level 60. You will save so much materials and Mora by keeping your characters at level 60 Ascension 4 rather than leveling them to 90 or 80. But that said, if you do want your characters to level up, that is perfectly fine, as I will do that when I get Xiao, since Xiao will be my main character moving forward once he arrives, and I will get him to level 90 as soon as I can. But what does this have to do with Rainslasher? Well, the thing about Rainslasher is it gives Elemental Mastery, which means Elemental Mastery, it'll give a bonus on reaction damage, which means it'll give a bonus on Electro-Charged as your reaction element that we're going to be using. The problem with that is, since my character is level 60, that means the base damage of these reactions will be low, as Electro-Charge and Superconduct, our base damage is based off your character's level, which means since my characters are only level 60, they won't be doing that much damage anyway, so I do not suggest Rainslasher if you're going to do it the same way as I am. But if you are going to level up Beidou to say level 90, Rainslasher can be a good option, it's just not the best option. It'll still increase your damage, just not by a lot. This 32% here, you see this 32%, it is rank 4 of a Rainslasher, while a rank 1 Serpent Spine already gives 30% as well. Serpent Spine will just do a lot more damage than Rainslasher will do, so unless you already have Rainslasher leveled up, I do not suggest using Rainslasher for Beidou. For her attributes, you can see that I am rocking that 200% energy recharge. I usually use Serpent Spine. So with Serpent Spine, I am in that very nice ratio of crit rate and crit damage, which is almost 1:2. So if you need more crit rate, if you need more crit damage, you just use whichever hat you need more of. My energy recharge is still at above 200%, which makes it very nice. Electro damage bonus is weird because my cup is not at max level, and my attack is kinda low, but that is okay because, as I said, Beidou will be doing off-field damage anyway, so you don't really need to maximize that attack because your full DPS potential will be coming from your entire team rather than just Beidou. As for her teams, I was talking about earlier that you do want that Electro Resonance, high voltage, which will always generate an electro particle whenever you do reactions, and we are going to do a lot of reactions with Xingqiu and Beidou in the party. Your 4th slot is always open, you can use anyone that you want for this slot like Venti, but it is most important that you have the Electro Resonance, which means you can also have, for example, Fischl as your support character here, and then you can have a different main character such as, for example, Mona or Child, and then this opens up this slot instead. Basically, you want to make sure that you have 2 Electro characters and at least 1 Hydro character first, and then you have your free slot for anything else that you want. Now in this clip, I want to show you the full counter, quick swapping into Beidou in order to counter attack, and then switching back to your DPS. In this clip, Sucrose is my main DPS. You'll also see that the Chain Lightning is hitting the enemies in the back. Basically, what you want to practice is the quick swapping to make sure that you are able to catch that perfect counter. And that is Beidou, a very fun Electro character to use that works really well with Xingqiu and probably any other Hydro characters or a Hydro team, as well as the Electro Resonance. She does have her quirks, which is the having to need the Electro Resonance and having to need energy recharge, but she is still incredibly fun to play and incredibly powerful as well. She will give you that damage reduction, she will give you that electro damage, and her working together with Xingqiu is just such a joy, especially seeing all the electro damage, all the Electro-Charged hits. Seeing all the damage in the screen is very fun. But I hope you did find that informative. If you did, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. It really helps out the channel. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.